Okay, so today we're gonna dive into something that a lot of you guys are interested in, and that is prohormones.
Hmm.
And specifically, we're gonna try to figure out how to tell the difference between uh, an expected side effect of taking prohormones and then a really serious complication.
Right. Yeah, that's a big one. A lot of people get confused about that.
Yeah, because you hear both of those things all the time, and they're kind of like lumped in together, and it can be very hard to separate those two things.
Absolutely. And, people are looking for that edge in the gym. They're trying to get the most out of their workouts, and pro hormones can definitely seem appealing, you know, but you really need to be aware of what you're getting into.
Yeah, for sure. So let's just start with the basics. What are we even talking about when we say expected side effects?
Yeah.
It almost sounds like we're just like, well, yeah, you're going to have some bad stuff happen, but it's fine.
Right. Well, it's not that it's fine, but when you really change your hormones, you're introducing these powerful substances into your body's going to react. And there are some common reactions that we tend to see, which is why we call them expected.
Okay. So they're expected because they happen frequently, and they're usually in response to, the body sensing something different going on.
Exactly. And often those effects are related to the dose too. Higher dose might mean more pronounced side
So
effects.
more is not always better?
No, not necessarily. You got to find that sweet spot.
Right. So what are some of these common ones that people might experience if they're, venturing into this territory?
Well, one of the most common ones is skin changes. You might see increased oil production, which unfortunately can lead to breakouts.
Actually, yeah.
Yeah, acne, exactly. It's like your skin's oil glands are working overtime in response to all those hormones.
Yeah, I can definitely see how that would happen. And some people also talk about hair changes, right?
That's right. Some individuals, especially those predisposed to male pattern baldness, might notice accelerated hair loss.
That they just speeds up the inevitable.
Yeah, pretty
But
much. But hey, at least you'll be jacked, right?
yeah, there you go.
Yeah,
So those are kind of the superficial ones, I guess. But there's also stuff going on like internally with moods and stuff, right?
absolutely. Mood alterations are definitely a common side effect.
Yeah.
Some people experience increased aggression, this classic roid rage.
Yeah, that's what you always hear about.
Right. But it can also manifest as irritability, anxiety, or even some mild depression. It really depends on the person and how their brain chemistry reacts to the hormones.
Oh, wow. So it really is a mixed bag.
It can be, yeah. And
Yeah.
then you've got your lipid profile, which is your cholesterol levels.
Ah, right. Cholesterol.
Yep. And that can be affected too. You might see an increase in LDL, which is the bad cholesterol, and a decrease in HDL, the good cholesterol.
So not ideal.
Not ideal, but usually temporary.
Okay. That's
Hmm.
good to know at least.
Hmm.
And then another thing you hear about is blood pressure, right?
Yes. Temporary increases in blood pressure are also pretty common. It's your body trying to adapt to this new hormonal environment.
So it's just like everything's kind of getting ramped up.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
And then, of course, there's the big one, testosterone suppression.
Oh, yeah. That's the whole point, right?
Look, sort of you're introducing these synthetic hormones, so your body kind of says, hey, we've got plenty of stuff we don't need to make our own right now.
So it just shuts down production?
Yeah, it can slow down or even shut down production temporarily.
Yeah.
And that can lead to decreased libido fatigue and potentially even some muscle loss after you stop the cycle if you don't manage it properly.
Oh, it's kind of a catch-22. You take it to gain muscle, but then your body stops making its own testosterone.
Right, which is why post-cycle therapy or PCT is so important. We'll talk more about that later.
Okay, we'll definitely get to that.
Yeah.
And then last but not least, there's water retention, right?
Yes. Some prohormones can make you hold on to more water, which can give you that puffy or bloated look.
Yeah, I've definitely seen that.
It's not the most desirable side effect, but it's usually temporary.
So we've gone through a whole laundry list of potential side effects, and some of them don't sound too fun,
Yeah.
but it sounds like for the most part, they're temporary and manageable.
Right. And keep in mind, we call these expected side effects because they're common and they're generally not life-threatening. But then there's the flip side, the complications.
Yeah, okay, so that's what we really need to talk about.
Okay.
What makes a complication different from just a regular side effect?
Well, complications are more serious. They're often unexpected, and they have the potential to cause long-term harm.
So it's not just your body adjusting, it's something going wrong.
Exactly. It's like the difference between a little turbulence on a flight and the engine catching fire.
Okay, that's a pretty vivid analogy.
I try. And the thing about complications is they usually don't go away on their own, even after you stop using the prohormones.
So they can have lasting consequences.
Absolutely. So it's crucial to be able to recognize the signs and get help if you need it.
So let's talk about some of these potential complications. What are the things that people really need to be aware of?
Well, one of the biggest concerns is liver damage or hepatotoxicity.
Yeah, you hear about that a lot.
And for good reason. Some prohormones, particularly the ones that are methylated, can be really tough on your liver.
So what does that look like? What are the signs of liver damage?
Well, you might experience jaundice, which is that yellowing of the skin and eyes. You might have severe abdominal pain, and your liver enzyme levels in your blood work will be elevated.
So if you're getting blood work done regularly, you'd be able to catch that.
Exactly. Regular blood work is so important, especially if you're using these substances. And in really severe cases, liver damage can lead to liver failure, which is obviously a life-threatening situation.
That's scary. So liver damage is a big one. What else should people be looking out for?
Cardiovascular issues are another major concern. Prohormones can cause spikes in blood pressure, irregular heartbeats, blood clots, and even long-term damage to your heart and blood vessels.
So it's like playing Russian roulette with your heart.
It can be if you're not careful. Your heart health is so important, and these substances can put a lot of strain on your cardiovascular system.
Okay, so we've got the liver, we've got the heart. What else?
Well, then there's endocrine disruption.
Which means...
It means your hormones are out of whack. And this can manifest in a few different ways.
Yeah.
One is persistent gynecomastia, which is the development of breast tissue in males.
Oh, yeah, I've heard of that.
It's caused by an imbalance of estrogen and testosterone. And sometimes it can be severe enough that it requires medical intervention.
So not just a cosmetic issue.
No, definitely not. And then you've got prolonged testosterone suppression. We talked about how prohormones can temporarily shut down your body's own testosterone production, but sometimes it takes a while for that to come back online.
And what happens then?
Well, you might experience all the symptoms of low testosterone even after you stop using the prohormones, things like fatigue, low libido, muscle loss, and in some cases, guys might need to go on testosterone replacement therapy long term.
So it's not just a matter of taking the prohormone and then you're good.
Yeah.
You have to be prepared for the aftermath.
Exactly. You got to have an exit strategy.
Right. And then there's the mental health side of things too, right?
Yes. Unfortunately, some people experience severe psychological effects from prohormones. This can include intense and prolonged depression, anxiety disorders, or even in rare cases, psychotic episodes.
Oh, wow, that's serious.
It is, and it seems to be more common in people who might already be predisposed to mental health issues. But even if you don't have a history of mental health problems, these substances can mess with your brain chemistry and cause some real issues.
So it's really important to pay attention to your mental state if you're using these things.
Absolutely. If you notice any significant changes in your mood or behavior, definitely talk to a doctor right away.
Okay, so we've talked about liver damage, heart problems, hormone disruption, mental health issues. Is there anything else?
Well, there's also the potential for kidney strain or damage.
Really? I hadn't heard much about that.
It's not as common as some of the other complications, but it can happen. Your kidneys are responsible for filtering waste products from your blood, and if you're putting a lot of stress on your body with prohormones, it can put extra strain on your kidneys.
So just another thing to be aware of.
Exactly. The bottom line is that prohormones are powerful substances, and they can have a wide range of effects on your body, both positive and negative. So it's crucial to be informed and to make responsible choices.
Okay, so let's say someone's using prohormones and they start to notice some changes. How can they tell if it's just an expected side effect or something more serious?
That's the million-dollar question, right? Well, as we've talked about, intensity and persistence are key.
So if it's mild and it goes away, it's probably not a big deal.
Right. But if it's severe or if it doesn't improve even after you stop using the prohormone, then that's a red flag.
And what about blood work? Can that help?
Absolutely. Blood work can give you objective data on how your body's functioning. So you can check your liver enzymes, your cholesterol, your hormone levels, your kidney function. And if any of those values are significantly out of whack, then it's a sign that something's up.
So basically, if you're going to use these things, you got to be monitoring your health pretty closely.
You really do. Your health is your responsibility, and you can't just blindly trust that everything's going to be fine. You got to be proactive.
So for those people who are thinking about using prohormones and maybe they've already started, what are some things they can do to try and minimize the risks?
Well, first and foremost, do your research. You got to know what you're taking. You got to understand how it works, what the potential side effects are, and what the appropriate dosages are.
Don't just buy something off the internet because it looks cool.
No, definitely not. And then start low and slow. You don't need to jump in with a massive dose right away. Start with a low dose, see how your body reacts, and then adjust accordingly.
So kind of like testing the waters.
Exactly. And then there are also cycle support supplements that can help protect your organs.
What are those?
Well, there are supplements specifically designed to support liver health, cardiovascular health, prostate health. And they can be really beneficial in helping your body cope with the stress of prohormones.
So it's like giving your body some extra armor.
Exactly. And then on-cycle monitoring is crucial. You got to pay attention to how your body's feeling.
Mhm.
If you notice anything unusual or concerning, don't ignore it.
So listen to your body.
Exactly. Your body will tell you when something's wrong. You just got to be paying attention. And then, of course, there are the basics like proper hydration and nutrition.
Yeah, that's always important.
Always. If you're putting your body through a lot, it needs the right fuel and hydration to function properly. And then try to avoid other substances that can put stress on your liver, like alcohol and certain medications.
So basically live a healthy lifestyle.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
And then finally, limit the duration of your cycles. You don't need to be on prohormones year-round. Give your body a break. Let it recover.
So it's all about being smart and responsible.
Exactly. It's not about taking the biggest dose and pushing yourself to the limit. It's about finding that balance between getting results and staying healthy.
Okay, so let's talk about what happens after the cycle is over. We hear a lot about post-cycle therapy or PCT. What exactly is that and why is it so important?
Well, PCT is basically a protocol that you follow after you finish your prohormone cycle. And the goal is to help your body restore its natural hormone production.
So it's like a reset button.
Exactly. Remember we talked about how prohormones suppress your body's own testosterone production? Well, PCT is all about getting those levels back up to normal.
And how did that work?
Well, there are a few different approaches, but one of the most common is to use SERMs, which are selective estrogen receptor modulators.
Okay, I'm not going to pretend I know what that means.
It's okay. Basically, these are medications that help stimulate the release of hormones that tell your testes to start producing testosterone again.
So they kind of kickstart the system.
Exactly. And PCT is important for a few reasons. First, it helps restore your testosterone levels, which can prevent muscle loss fatigue, low libido, and all those other fun symptoms of low T.
Yeah, nobody wants that.
Right? And then it also helps to manage estrogen rebound. During your cycle, your estrogen levels might be relatively higher compared to your suppressed testosterone.
Oh, okay, so it's like a seesaw.
Yeah, kind of.
Yeah.
And when you come off the prohormones, your estrogen can rebound, and that can lead to problems like gynecomastia.
Right, so PCT helps to keep those hormones balanced.
Exactly. And then finally, PCT can help you maintain the gains you made during your cycle.
So it's not just about damage control, it's also about preserving the results.
Exactly. You put in all that work, you want to keep those gains, right?
Right, so PCT is definitely something to take seriously.
Absolutely. It's an essential part of responsible prohormone use.
Okay, so we've talked a lot about the general risks and benefits of prohormones, but what about people with pre-existing health conditions? How does that affect things?
That's a really important question. Because if you have certain health conditions, using prohormones can be extremely risky.
Like it could make things worse.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So if you have any kind of liver disease, cardiovascular disease, kidney disease, diabetes, prostate problems, mental health disorders, hormone-sensitive conditions, or if you're under 21, you should not use prohormones.
Wow, that's a pretty long list.
It is, and there's a good reason for that. These conditions can make you much more susceptible to the negative effects of prohormones.
So it's just not worth the risk.
Exactly. You know, your health is your most valuable asset, and it's not something to gamble with.
Okay, so let's say someone's using prohormones and they start to experience some really bad side effects, or they think they might be developing a complication. What should they do?
The first thing you need to do is stop using the prohormones immediately.
Just stop cold turkey.
Yep. And then you need to see a doctor as soon as possible.
Don't try to tough it out.
No, definitely not.
Yeah.
And be honest with your doctor about what you've been taking so they can give you the appropriate care.
So no shame in seeking help.
No shame at all. You know, your health is more important than your ego. And if you're having serious problems, you need to get professional help.
Okay, so basically, be smart, be responsible, and if things start to go south, don't hesitate to seek medical attention.
Exactly. You know, knowledge is power. And the more you know about prohormones, the better equipped you'll be to make informed decisions about your health.
Right, and that's what this whole deep dive has been about,
Mm-hmm.
trying to provide you guys with the information you need to make those decisions.
Exactly. You know, we've covered a lot of ground today, but it's just the tip of the iceberg.
Yeah, there's always more to learn.
Absolutely. And it's your responsibility to keep learning and to stay up to date on the latest research.
Because this stuff is constantly evolving.
It is. And the more you know, the better you'll be able to protect your health.
All right, so before we wrap up, I just wanted to remind everyone that if you're interested in learning more about prohormones, or if you're looking to order some snacks, you can check out the publichealthlaw.best website.
Yep. They've got a great selection of bulking, cutting, and strength stacks for maximum results.
So head over to publichealthlaw.best and see what they've got.
And of course, remember that the content of our podcast is for informational and entertainment purposes only.
Always consult with a qualified healthcare professional before making any decisions about your health.
Absolutely. All right, that's all for today, folks. Thanks for tuning in.
See you next time.